kick off the panel with the first theme, really, which is security and privacy threats landscape in 2023 and the weaknesses in this blockchain infrastructure ecosystem, human factor, all that led to these compromises. And I think a lot of people, when they talk about the security and privacy landscape for 2023, they say, wow, the valuation has suffered so much, right? It's no longer very attractive for hackers to hack the blockchain, no longer attractive for people to steal crypto, but it's not true, right? So I'd like to get your thoughts. So Jag, I think you have some interesting views to share on that.
Yeah, just three main points. Actually, if you look at it, like crypto is known as the Wild Wild West, right? And for very good reasons, right? It's like literally, hardly a week, or a month goes by without a significant hack. So if you look at history, just in 2023, we had about almost $1.8 billion worth of assets that was, exploited or lost or leaked, right? And actually, more than 40% of it, right, is due to private key compromise, right? And there are many other reasons, such as losses that can be due to signature exploits or re-entrancy attacks or flash loads attacks. But by far, the single biggest attack vector, it's private key compromise. And if you look at just the data alone, more than 40% of the assets was lost was due to private key leakage. And like 7 out of 10 largest hacks last year was due to the same reasons. We have institutions that was compromised. There's breach infrastructure, and even wallets, technology wallets that has been assets lost by the users due to private key leakage. So that's, by far one of the most critical security issues that right now institutions face today. And which leads to my second point, a lot of the times assets that are lost, it's not just due to system, vulnerabilities, but in security we have this saying called, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And quite often the weakest link is actually the users themselves, right? The users that may be exploited because of social engineering attacks or phishing scams, which then brings me to my last point. Social engineering attacks is probably one of the gravest threats that we face today, simply because the pervasiveness of how the attacks can happen, right? It can come in many forms, like for example, airdrop scams, address poisonings, even malware infections, and it can take place on in multiple platforms. Like you see scams in Twitter, in Discord, and even on LinkedIn, right? And that even the brightest, even the smartest can fall a victim to social engineering attacks. Like the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency in the United States, they were tricked into transferring the access to a scammer. And even Vitalik Buterin, has his account that was compromised, which then led to an airdrop scam, right? So I think that's the few key threats that the industry face today, and something that needs to be tackled.
Yeah, I think talking about 2023, I think a lot of people will also compare to 2022. One of the big events that happened was the Axie Infinity hack as well, right? Which resulted in
private key compromise as well.
That's right, private key compromise. But I think with that question, I'd like to come to you, Stephen. You talk about interoperability, and that's a way to get the different blockchain to work together and make it more mainstream. But as a result of interoperability, we have all these cross-chain projects, and sometimes some of these have vulnerabilities or weak points. What are your thoughts on how these are contributing to the threat landscape?
Yeah, well, I can say the only time that I ever fell for a scam was I was in a rush to bridge Ethereum over to Polygon, and I Googled, Ethereum or Matic bridge, and I was in a rush, and I deposited, or I thought I deposited, I think it was 1 ETH in the bridge, and it never came out. And then about 2 hours later, I realized it was a scam. So, I think just from a personal experience, that was hold my hand up the time I fell for a scam. But I think on the question of interoperability, I suppose I would talk about it a little bit from an identity point of view, and how, there's lots of identity projects in crypto, going back to 2017, projects like Self-Key, let's say an early ICO, and you kind of have a lot of different projects building an identity, and then it's like, well, how do they talk to each other? I think beforehand we were talking about SingPass, that's used in Singapore. Okay, great, but try and bring that to Europe. People are scratching their heads saying, what's SingPass? The European Union just a couple of days ago introduced a directive for digital wallets that European citizens must be provided with a digital wallet. Okay, great, but then how does that talk to, if you travel outside of Europe? So I think, blockchain identities, this goes back to the threats point of view, that if somebody gets verified with a blockchain identity, how much can you rely upon it? There's different levels of identity. Identity of a sports club or a DAO is different from identity that will get you open a bank account. So I think, there's a lot of tricky things there that need to be worked out. I also think from an emerging markets point of view, a lot of people actually don't have much identity to begin with. In some of the markets we're dealing with, they might only have a voter registration card or a birth certificate. Is that enough from a global point of view to get a digital identity? I'd like to say yes, but is a voting card in Nigeria going to open you a bank account in the European Union? Probably not. So I kind of think the identity threats, who you can rely on in the sector, are still very much open questions. Like I said, there's been a lot of projects that have tried to do this, and how the hell do they end up all talking to each other? That's another question. So I'm not really providing an answer, I'm just asking more questions. But.
Right. Yeah. So talking about identity, I think Henry, earlier you had a lot of perspectives on the data aspect that there's a lot of efforts in looking at securing the crypto digital assets on blockchain, but not so much the data side. Can you explain more about that?
Sure. So currently the blockchain and the crypto, and also the identification and the security are all focused on our digital assets part. So, but actually for the Web 3.0, which is the next generation web, it's a technology innovative way to actually to upgrade the whole internet. And the major focus will be the data and application separation. So what does that mean? So for example, we all talk about disrupt Web 2.0. So what does that mean? That means the platform always own our own data. For example, Facebook and Twitter. And all those platforms own our own data. But can blockchain technology help to address this issue? The answer is no, right? So for the blockchain and the crypto, it doesn't matter how advanced and how the security developed, but the centralization of the data still there. So the disruption of actual Web 2.0 should start it from the data. So first, the platform owns the data. So the Web 3.0 protocol, the first task, major task, is to return data ownership to users. And then the value carried by those data can return to users. So those values are really universal basic income. It's not the UBI proposed by Sam Altman from WorldCoin. So UBI is never something like OpenAI make money for the world and then distribute it to human beings. No, a centralized company will not be able to distribute the income in an effective way. So people don't trust like Microsoft and OpenAI to fund our like emerging countries and the people for UBI. Never. It's never going to happen. So what is the real Web 3.0? Web 3.0 is people own their own data. So they own their own data, and this data was identified by every decentralized identifier. And those data stored in a way that users can easily authorize to other applications. In return, they got data back. So that's called global decentralized data exchange. So the Web 3.0 is about a web of data. And this protocol, for example, Solid by Tim Berners-Lee, which is the founder of the World Wide Web, and by MetaLife, which is a decentralized social network, will lay the foundation for our data. It doesn't matter what kind of data, social, e-commerce, healthy, gene data, it all belongs to yourself, and you are going to make money with blockchain mechanism. And those data will actually be your UBI when even the AI and robots take all human beings their job, right? Okay.
Yes, the human side of things, the human side of the data in the blockchain is not yet prioritized in terms when it comes to security. And I saw you nodding earlier, Elton. You got anything to sort of add to that? Right. Okay. So yeah. So we're talking about social identity, right? And securing that. What do you see are some of the weaknesses in the current way that we are securing this? And perhaps talk about a little bit about your solution and how you look at mitigating some of these weaknesses.
No, everyone shared very valid points. First, Stefan talked about developing emerging markets and how people in Africa or less developed countries don't really have relevant socials that we in more developed countries would have, such as LinkedIn, Twitter, that defines who we are. So when it comes to identity, it's very interesting because when we talk about identity and we talk about blockchain, we're kind of decentralizing the identity portion and also have that be the kind of starting point of your potential audit trail of whatever you do, be it in on-chain in a Web3 world, but outside of it as well. And with that credential, you can carry on to many applications, be it job searches or applications to anything. So I find blockchain technology very particularly fascinating. The technology itself is about immutability, transparent, and it's about self-sovereignty. I think that's something that we see very prevalent in recent years, maybe not so much many years ago, but with all the scams and fraud that's happening, leakages from centralized bodies, we just want more control over our own data. And with blockchain technology, it just gives you that kind of control. So with that kind of control and infra, so for example, the company I'm working for right now, I'm leading products at the Binary Holdings, and what we do is we provide this self-sovereign DID, self-sovereign decentralized identity to users, and with that identity, they can toggle their privacy while harnessing the security of the blockchain to do many interesting stuff, and build their own audit trail. They could, for example, if you just graduated from a university and your employer want to see whether you've really graduated from the university, so they talk to the university, but that would take a very long time. So what they do is they have this thing called the verifier credentials, a VC, so it's not venture capital, where the issuer just issues its VCs to you, and then with that, you can just bring it, store into your self-sovereign DID or self-sovereign identity, and just carry on to not just the Web3 world, but outside of it as well. So it's very interesting. The use cases that we have explored is only the minuscule, 5-10%. There's countless innovation that even I can't think about right now that can be explored. So it's, very interesting to add on to the identity portion.
Right, yeah, and Chong, of course, you have worked in securing identity assets for more than 2 decades now. So can you just share with us, the latest sort of weaknesses that you see in blockchain in securing identity and?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. I think I agree with Jag when he talked about all these compromises that are happening right now. The compromises coming from losing access to losing your private key, especially in the Web3 world. But I think a lot of the biggest threats that are happening right now is the massive leak of your credentials. Web 2 way of identifying you as who you are, a lot ties down to you having access to your email address, right? Or maybe you having an account with Facebook or X. So the idea of relying on all this information to determine who you are, I think needs to be relooked at. And I feel that the current threat that are happening, all these leaks that are happening, everyone would know about you, because if you look at all the leaks that happened to Singapore, I mean, we won't name it but it was very embarrassing for us, where your NRIC is now public knowledge, your addresses, your parents' name are all public knowledge. Just imagine how much can a user do with this, or can a hacker do with this, right? And I guess that leads us to really look at what should we be doing, to make this, to secure this piece of information, especially using blockchain technology. I think it's an ideal way of doing it. Where Elton, I think in terms of, we're also a big believer of using decentralized protocols to achieve this, because having self-custody and having owning fully your identity, because by proving that you own the private key, does have a lot of merits, to securing this infrastructure.
Yeah, I think Jack, earlier you pointed out, one of the biggest compromises is the private key compromise. And I think one of the, perhaps the vulnerability there or the weaknesses there is the fact that some of these infrastructure, even though we are calling it Web 3 or blockchain, is still sitting in centralized sort of infrastructure. And it makes it sort of a point of weaknesses for the attacker to focus on and therefore exploit. So thank you for this very quick...
and the weakest link is actually the person, right? Remember, if I'm going to do social recovery, I think I have to think very clearly about how can I design a better way to do social recovery. Oh, so you can't hear me just now? Yeah, so, sorry. So, basically I mentioned that, when Jack mentioned the weakest link in that compromise is a person. And if you rely on the recovery of your access to a key on social, then you have to think very hard. How are you going to do it? Because that's going to be an easy way for someone else to gain access to your private key.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And of course we have amongst you, the 5 speakers, you have solutions that ideally help secure the different aspects of the assets in the blockchain world. So talking about all these threats, right, and what are some of the latest developments that you see in the blockchain technology that is helping us to secure the, all these assets and also to provide the privacy aspects as well?
If I may just jump in. So I think I briefly talked about this technology called the zero knowledge technology. I'm not sure how many of you here know, but to put it simply, it is basically just showing a proof to one party, showing a proof to the other party without revealing much information, hence the name zero knowledge proof. And it's very fascinating because theoretically it's kind of possible, and people talked about it much last year, but we've seen applications down to the blockchain level or even the hardware level, like today. If you talk about linear blockchain, there's many blockchains out there that's applying such proofs at the infra layer. And with that, you have privacy issues that we are able to tackle, where you don't need to show all the sensitive information that we want to show, just like how Song showed that, we go to the website, we put our email and give our information here and there without knowing all information is actually out there. And that's where all the privacy issues come into play. And with blockchain and with, I think I'm very bullish on this zero knowledge technology. I think we can really start to build real trust. And blockchain is a trusted system. If you trust the system, then yeah, but we can really explore and really truly give back self-sovereignty in terms of data. People control over their own data, and with that, yeah, it could be very interesting to see what happens after.
Yeah, I think Stephen.
Well, just what Elton said there, one of my favorite use cases of zero knowledge proofs would be, let's just take a basic example of, you walk into a bar, you want to buy a drink, the barman says, show me your ID to prove that you're over 18. So you take out your passport or your Singapore ID, Hong Kong ID, and then you show him all the information, but all he cares about is your date of birth, but you're giving across all of this other information. So if we could get to a point where, in that particular example, that all you're doing is showing your date of birth, he approves it, gives you the drink, and then you go to the next bar, you get asked the same question at the next bar, but they don't actually look at your identity. They look at, well, he was verified at the previous point of view, so the actual verification, the first time it happened, actually acts as the proof. So, all of this stuff has been talked about for years, but I think with zero knowledge proof, we're kind of getting closer to it. So, just to add that.
Yeah, Ja.
Yeah, can I just add on? So, from an institutional perspective, we use multi-party computation, which is cryptography, to break up private keys, into shards. Because earlier on we spoke about, one of the major causes of private key compromise is because single private key, in terms of how private key is being managed, is that usually suffers from a single point of failure. Right? So we use MPC to break up the private key into shards, and usually helped by multiple participants. And the thing is that, we use multiple cryptography techniques to strengthen this process. So like Elton and Stephen talked about zero trust, zero knowledge proof. Zero knowledge proof is actually also used in MPC, right? Because we secure the individual participants' private key shards data, allow the participants to come together to do a MPC distributed signing without the individual key shards input ever being exposed, to any third party or even within, the participant itself. So cryptography, it's very important, as one of the layers of security that we use to secure our assets. But not just that, for institutional perspective, we have to deploy, a multi-layer architecture. So in security, we call defense in depth, right? So even if one layer and has been compromised, there's still multiple layers that can go towards safeguarding your assets. So for example, we use decentralized key charge management using MPC. We use trusted execution environment, right, to secure all the sensitive cryptographic data and to make sure that verifications of approvals are done in a trusted environment. And also, we use zero trust architecture to ensure that there's always multi-factor authentications in place to make sure that, we mitigate risks like data leakage, as well as not just external attacks, but also internal frauds.
Yeah, so I think zero knowledge proof and multi-party computation is going to be like really exciting technologies that we'll see that's going to be increasingly adopted, right, to mitigate some of these threats. Henry, earlier you wanted to say something. Sorry.
So zero proof technology, and all this advancement from blockchain technology, and actually was incorporated into the protocol stack of our next generation web. But in addition, and also to this blockchain technology, and all those, the security and protocol stack about data was already incorporated into the protocol stack. So the protocol stack right now is very thick. So compared to the Web 2.0 protocol stack, the Web 3.0 protocol stack is very thick. So this thick protocol stack, we call fat protocol stack, actually can empower all those Web 3.0 applications and can be owned by the individuals. And because individuals don't have to worry about certain security problem which associated with applications which can only be handled by large corporations. So in the Web 3.0 era, and the people, individual, and the small and the medium-sized the enterprise can actually be powered and be empowered by those technologies. So because when data was returned to everyone and associated with its value, so the data security must be handled by the user themselves. Right now, those technology can help to protect, and not only about protect the data, but also you need to help the data can be exchanged. So the zero knowledge proof, all this kind of technology was critical for the Web 3.0. Yeah.
Yeah, so all these technologies is very exciting, and I think I'd like to come to you, Chong, because you talked briefly about AI earlier. So AI, of course, is all the buzz and is emerging technology. How is that going to help, the blockchain security and privacy aspects, or not?
Hello. Yeah, I think I do see AI playing both part of both sides of in the security equation, right? AI can be deployed by the hackers or whoever wants to compromise you, but I think there's also a side that when we're doing security management, we want to rely on AI to pinpoint where are the compromises coming from. So the use of AI, I think we have to always look at it in a almost like an ambivalent way, right? But what I see is that with the proliferation of the data that's out there, and with AI, compromises are going to come a lot fast and strong. Right? I mean, they are able to easily determine, how can I get a hold of your identity? And I guess we need to up the game, and build better process, better solutions, or with AI helping us on the good side, to protect our users as they navigate this very difficult technology known as Web3.
Yeah, you say that AI is going to help the cyber defenders pinpoint weaknesses, but that's also going to help the threat actors to pinpoint where to attack, right?
Yeah, it's both sides of the coin.
That's right, both sides of the coin. We have, not much time left, but I'm just wondering whether any of the audience have any questions. Thank the panelists. Thank you very much for your time, and they'll be around, so catch them if you got any other questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you once again to our panel discussion, to all our panelists and moderator with the topic blockchain and identity verification, addressing security and privacy concerns. So for those who have any other questions.